Disclaimer: the stories shared on this channel are personal near-death experience and health.
I am Jordan Malik Thompson, 28 years old from the USA. On September 2nd, 2021, my heart stopped.
For 11 minutes, I was gone. I live in Baltimore, even though my parents are from South Africa originally, and that night began like any other. I was tired from work, the glow from my laptop still in my eyes, playlists running low and my thoughts running lower. I told myself I was fine. I told myself a lot of things. I told myself that the messages I hid, the images I scrolled past at 3 in the morning, the little lies I told to keep the peace, did not mean I had drifted. I said I was just human. I said everyone did it. I said it was not a big deal. But I felt a coldness growing inside me. It was small at first, a quiet numbness around my prayers, a soft excuse when my conscience nudged, a laugh when someone called me out. I would shrug and change the subject. I would delete the evidence, close the tab, and act like I had not just stepped over a line. It became a pattern. Patterns make habits. Habits become roots. My life looked normal from the outside. I had friends, a few good ones. I had a church I visited sometimes. I had talent that paid the bills. I had big talk about purpose and the next move. But inside, the wiring was frayed. I kept secrets I did not even name aloud. I slept with the glow of my phone like a nightlight. I flirted with things I had been taught to avoid. I lied about small things, about where I was, what I saw, why I came home late. The lies felt harmless. They were more convenient than confession. I remember that night, a Thursday, like it was stretched thin. Traffic was light, rain had started, and the city lights smeared on the street. I was thinking about nothing and everything. I was tired. I remember the radio playing soft. I remember checking a message one last time. I remember thinking, I will just be home in 5 minutes. Then the car in front slowed. The red light flicked. I did what I always did. Checked my blind spot, moved through the intersection. I did not see the truck that came barreling through. Metal crushed metal. The world folded and stretched into a single long scream. There was no time to pray. There was no time to think clever thoughts. My chest was squeezed like a fist. Then there was a strange calm. I was somewhere watching. My body lay in the car. The airbags were like pillows that would not comfort. People were shouting, and their words sounded far away, like someone talking through water. My phone was still lit on my lap. A streetlight blinked. The rain hissed. I was out. It was not like sleep. It was lighter and sharper at the same time. I floated above the wreck, looking down at a face I recognized as mine. Eyes closed, mouth slack. My hands were folded awkwardly, as if still holding the wheel. Someone shouted, "He is not breathing." The voice fuzzed like an old radio. Then the world thinned. Sound pulled away like a tide. Color drained from the edges. A pull began at the back of my head, like a finger tugging me through a hole. I did not fall. I was pulled. The ground under me melted into shadow. The air turned thick and hot, but there were no flames at first, only heat that sat on my skin like an accusation. I remember thinking, this is not right, this is wrong. I tried to reach back. I could not touch my body. I could not move it. There was a loneliness in being separated, an odd, hollow sort of being that watches and cannot act. The darkness was not empty. It had a weight. It was patient. It breathed against me. The further I went, the heavier the air became. The sounds behind me were muffled now, like distant sirens swallowed by the surf. In front, something like a corridor opened, not with light, but with pressure. A whisper moved through the gloom. It was not a voice I could place. It did not ask. It told. The descent was slow. It felt like being dragged into a memory you had tried to forget. Each inch deeper brought memories that smelled of dust and old clothes. Moments I had thought small, but that had left stains on my heart. I remembered nights I had clicked away from conviction. I remembered texts I had sent and deleted. I remembered the softness I had allowed myself to believe was harmless. The memories came not as flashes, but as heavy stones, each one dropping into my chest, making it sink. Heat rose not like fire, but like shame. The air compressed until breathing was work. In the distance, a sound began. At first a hum, then a chorus of soft, broken cries. Not loud, not cinematic, just small, continuous notes of regret. Shadows shifted at the edges like people trying not to be seen. They did not rush or lash out. They were trapped in loops, small movements repeated over and over like watches stuck on the same minute. I was pulled into a wider space. The ground was black stone that seemed to hold and reflect the heat. Smoke curled without flame. The sky, if it could be called that, was a pressure that tasted like iron. There were silhouettes scattered, each one bowed as if carrying an invisible load. Each figure was alone in their circle of light, staring at a moment that would not release them. I thought I would feel fear, raw and loud. But it was quieter. It was the quiet of realization. It was the sound you hear when a part of you is finally acknowledged. The real terror was in seeing how small the things that led them here had once felt. Alone, I waited for meaning. The darkness seemed to listen. Then, like a curtain lifting, a line of memory unrolled before me. Not my whole life, not the big things, the small things. The messages I thought were private, the jokes I said to get a laugh, the times I justified another click. The faces of people I had used briefly and then forgotten. The loop tightened. The silence around me wrote the verdict without a judge. I wanted to look away. I wanted to claim confusion, to say I had not meant it. But the images were not judgments from without. They were truth from within. My choices presented with clarity I had not left myself. It was not a parade of monsters. It was a ledger. Each item was a small debt I thought I could ignore. And then it hit me. The sickening recognition. These were the seeds. I had planted them one small thing at a time. I had watered them with excuses. I had told myself the harvest would be nothing, that it would not matter. But harvest comes whether you notice or not. The darkness seemed to listen as my heart answered with a quiet, growing dread. The ground beneath me pulsed with heat, like I was standing on top of something alive and angry. The smoke moved in slow circles, drifting like it had its own mind, curling around my legs before slipping away into the dark. But the darkness did not feel empty. It felt aware, watching, waiting, listening. For a moment, I just stood there, confused, trembling, trying to understand what this place was. But deep down, somewhere beneath every excuse I had ever made, I already knew. I whispered to myself, this cannot be real. The words fell flat, swallowed by the pressure in the air. There was no echo, no response, just the heavy ache of being seen completely. Then, something shifted behind me, a presence. Not footsteps, not movement, just a presence, like truth itself had stepped closer. It was terrifying, not because it wanted to harm me, but because it knew me in a way I had never let myself be known. A heat pressed against my back, and then a voice rose, not heard through my ears but felt through every part of me, like it threaded itself through my bones. You treated sin like a game. I froze. The words didn't sound angry. They weren't shouted at, but they hit me harder than any scream could. They carried weight, history, evidence. It felt like the voice had opened a file cabinet of all my secrets and was reading the titles out loud. I wanted to defend myself. To say, I tried. I wasn't that bad. Everyone struggles. My sins were small. But the voice spoke again, as if answering my excuses before I said them. Nothing you hide stays small. The air shuddered. I felt something pulling at me, not physically, spiritually, like God himself was peeling back layers I had glued on for years. Then the darkness in front of me rippled and opened. A scene unfolded like a screen stretching across the night. Except it wasn't a screen. It was my life, raw, unfiltered, unedited. I saw myself sitting on my bed at 2 a.m, scrolling without thinking. I watched myself open conversations I should have avoided. I saw the images I told myself weren't hurting me. I watched my fingers hesitate, then choose to compromise again and again. I felt the shame of every just one more time. The presence whispered, "This was your worship." The words punched the air out of me. My legs weakened. I grabbed my knees, shaking. No, I didn't worship that. I was tired, lonely. I didn't mean... Then the presence did something worse than showing my actions. It showed my heart. I saw myself opening my Bible some mornings, only to close it after 1 minute because I was bored. I saw myself praying with my mouth while my thoughts drifted back to the things I knew were wrong. I saw myself lifting my hands in church but lowering them in secret. Each compromise played like a loop, and with every loop, the cords around my spirit tightened. And then the voice said, "You did not fall suddenly, you drifted." A burning grief spread through my chest. The truth hurt more than any flame could. The vision shifted, widened. Now I wasn't seeing only myself. I saw thousands, men, women, young, old, all in their own tiny circles of darkness. each trapped replaying the same choice that had opened the door for their fall. One man kept reliving an image he refused to let go of. A woman replayed a lie she told that destroyed trust. A teenager listened again and again to the same toxic song that shaped his anger. A married man stared at the message he should never have replied to. Everyone was isolated, not by force, but by the choices they repeated until they owned them. My stomach turned. "These are people like me," I whispered. The voice answered instantly, "These are people who believed what you believed." I felt the heat intensify, not burning, pressing, crushing, like regret had physical weight. The presence showed another scene, this time not individuals, but a pattern. I saw the spiritual consequences of small sins the way God sees them. Lust wasn't pleasure, it was hunger that never ended. Pride wasn't confidence, it was a blindness that spread like fog. Lies weren't protection, they were cracks in the foundation. Laziness didn't rest, it was spiritual starvation. It's not that deep wasn't harmless, it was the first stitch in a spiritual coffin. Then the voice said something that made my knees buckle. "This place is full of people who were almost saved." I leaned forward, shaking uncontrollably. Tears burned my eyes. Almost saved, almost surrendered, almost changed, almost. I didn't want to see more. I tried to look away. But the presence wasn't done. Suddenly, the vision turned inward again, not to my actions, but to my moments of conviction. The times I felt a tug to stop, to change, to walk away. The nights I felt something whisper, "This will destroy you." The Sundays where the sermon felt like it was calling my name, and I swallowed the feeling with pride. In the morning, I woke up knowing I needed to confess to someone, but didn't. Each ignored warning appeared like a glowing mark, shining on the moments right before I fell deeper. And the presence whispered, "Conviction ignored becomes permission for darkness." I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight. I wanted to curl into a ball and disappear, but the revelation wasn't over. The presence took me deeper, into a wide space filled with mirrors, thousands of them, stretching into the distance. But they didn't show reflections. They showed versions of me. Each one represented what I could have become if I had chosen differently. One version of me prayed consistently. One fought temptation until it broke. One apologized when needed. One built stronger friendships. One obeyed immediately when God nudged. One grew spiritually instead of shrinking. I swallowed hard. Then the mirror directly in front of me flickered and showed the version of me that had died in the car crash, the version that drifted, compromised, hid. The voice said, "This is who you became, but not who you were created to be." My legs gave out. I fell to the stone floor. I sobbed so hard that the pressure in the air shook around me. My hands trembled. My throat tightened. Everything inside me screamed with regret. I whispered, I didn't know it mattered this much." The presence replied with no softness, but with devastating truth. "You knew. You felt conviction. You silenced it." I cried harder. The weight of honesty crushed me until I could barely lift my head. Then suddenly, the tone of the presence shifted. It didn't grow gentler. It grew heavier. A memory surfaced. The sound of the paramedic's voice from the physical world. "He is not breathing. Stay with me. Stay with me." And the presence said, "I allowed your body to fall, so your soul could wake up." A shock ran through me like lightning. Then came the most painful revelation of all, the self-confrontation. The presence gave me no visions this time. It simply showed the truth. Truth about the people I wounded. Truth about the relationships I damaged. Truth about the prayers I stopped praying. Truth about the purpose I had abandoned. Truth about the spiritual strength I let decay. Truth about the person I could have been if I had fought when it mattered. I felt my own failure like fire. Not fire burning skin, fire burning illusion. Everything was fake and melted. Everything hidden surfaced. Everything I excused stood like a witness against me. And then the presence asked me a question, not spoken with words, but written straight into my spirit. "If you return, will you live differently?" My whole body shook. I felt exposed, afraid, empty, hopeful, devastated, everything crashing at once. I whispered, "Yes, God, yes, please." The presence moved closer. Light rose behind me, soft at first, then sharp. The ground rumbled. The heat thinned. The pressure broke like glass. The darkness recoiled as if something stronger had entered the realm. Then the voice said, firm, final, absolute. "You have seen enough. Your time is not finished. Warn them." And suddenly, a blast of light tore through the darkness like a sword. The force pulled me upward, violently, quickly, painfully, as though every regret was ripping away from me at once. I screamed, not in pain, but in shock, as my soul shot upward, away from the weight, away from the heat, away from everything that held me down. The light swallowed me whole again. The light swallowed me so fast that I did not have time to brace myself. One moment I was staring at the cracked stone ground of that realm, feeling heat pushing against my skin, and the next, everything was white, pure, sharp, alive. It was not warm light, not soft, it was power. It tore through the darkness like a blade and wrapped itself around me, pulling me upward with a force so strong it felt like my soul was being yanked through a narrow doorway. Every regret, every lie, every compromise clung to me like hooks, and the light ripped each one off as I ascended. The tearing was painful, not because of wounds, but because the truth was separating me from who I had been. I gasped, choking on air that wasn't air. I reached out for something, anything, to steady myself, but I felt only motion. Violent, upward motion. The voice echoed again, not around me, but inside me. You will warn them. The words carried weight, assignment, promise, expectation. It felt like the final stamp on everything I had seen below. Then all at once, the heat was gone, the pressure vanished, regret loosened its grip. I burst upward into darkness that wasn't hell. Darkness with air, a darkness with sound, a darkness filled with panic. Someone shouted, "We got a pulse, he's coming back." Another voice cried out, closer, desperate, "Stay with us, stay with us." Then breath slammed back into my lungs. I screamed, loud, raw, carved from the deepest part of me. My chest burned like it had been crushed by bricks. My eyes flew open, but the hospital lights above me looked blurry, swimming in circles. For a moment, I couldn't tell if I was still in hell, or if this was another vision. A nurse leaned over me, her voice shaking. "Oh my God, Jordan, can you hear me?" I could not speak. Not yet. I was crying, gasping, shivering like someone had thrown me into ice water. A paramedic near my feet whispered, 11 minutes. I don't understand how he's... But I was not listening. I was too busy feeling the weight of my own heartbeat, the rise of my chest, the taste of air, real air, filling my lungs. The sound of machines beeping felt like mercy itself. I grabbed the nearest hand, maybe the nurse, maybe someone else, and whispered through broken breath, I saw everything. She looked confused, but something in my eyes must have told her not to ask. They lifted me onto a stretcher. The motion made the world tilt, but I didn't care. I was alive. Alive with purpose, alive with warning. The ride to the trauma room was a blur. Hospital hallways flickered like scenes from a movie I wasn't ready to watch. But while my physical body was weak, my spirit was wide awake. Sharper than it had ever been. Something in me whispered, do not forget. Not a single thing, not a single moment. When the doctors finally stepped away and let me rest, I lay there staring at the ceiling. The image of the mirrors, the sound of the voice, the faces of the souls trapped in regret, the small sins that chained them, all of it pressed against me. I whispered into the cold room, God, I will change. I will change everything. My hands trembled as I lifted them slightly. I promise. The days after the accident were not easy. My body healed slowly, but my soul felt like it was moving through a hurricane of clarity. The first thing I did when I could touch my phone wasn't scrolling, wasn't checking messages, wasn't replying to anyone who had tagged or texted me. I deleted things, pages, images, videos, conversations, everything that had pulled me downward, everything I had once justified. I cried while deleting them, not because I missed them, but because I finally saw what they had done to me. I apologized to people I had lied to, called relatives I had neglected, told my sister I was sorry for letting grief keep me distant. I stepped back into church with a humility I did not know I could feel. I sat in the back, not out of shame, but out of reverence. I lifted my hands with sincerity instead of performance. And when I prayed, I felt heard, really heard. For the first time in years. Every day after the accident, I woke up with a heaviness on my chest, not fear, responsibility. I heard the voice again, warn them. So I began speaking. Quiet at first, then louder. Then to anyone who would listen. I told my friends, coworkers, people I used to party with, people I used to pretend to be with. I told them about drifting. I told them about the compromise. I told them about the danger of small sins. I told them how hell wasn't full of the obviously wicked, but unexpectedly comfortable. I told them the truth I had seen. Nobody ends up in hell by accident, they arrive by direction. I told them how direction starts with a decision, and how decisions start with habits, and how habits start with seeds that grow in the dark when you stop watching. I became a different man, broken, yes, but I'm awake, grateful, changed, determined. And every night before I sleep, I whisper the same words: God, keep me from drifting. If you are hearing this, it is not random. It is mercy. It is an invitation. It is a warning. Small sins grow. Compromise spreads. Darkness expands silently. Please do not wait for a moment like mine to wake up. Examine your life, examine your habits, examine your secrets. Turn now, while you still can. Choose life before the harvest comes. Tell me where you are watching from. I want to pray over you tonight, because someone else's small sin may already be calling your name. If this testimony stirred something in you, let it reach someone else too. There is a person in your life who needs this reminder more than you realize. And if you want more real warnings, real stories, and real encounters, subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell. Stay blessed and away from today.